Let's plan out all our spontaneity. That's what creates good entertainment. That's how you get the people coming back. You have everything segmented and collated and quantitated that's totally organic.
David, why do you think we are exploding on all social media platforms all at the same time?
Probably because
it's rehearsed.
AMC is popping right now, and we are the darling children.
Not right now. You're way in, but we're not going to talk about my position. So
are you receiving it anally, perhaps?
I am
in
now,
the AMC position.
I'm now getting my AMC shares via suppositories.
All right. Well, then there you go.
Well,
how's your week, buddy?
That's the kind of
were you watching candles, lighting wicks and sticks and fragrances? You keep telling me about green candles and red candles and all this bull crap.
Oh, I was confused.
Yeah. You've been spending a lot of time in Bath and Body Works, have you?
You want to know why I was confused? Because when I initially make the references, you don't acknowledge it whatsoever. So I'm figuring it's just one ear and out the other.
Jessica says the same thing.
And then you bring it up next
time. Yeah, she says the same thing. She's like, I never think you're paying attention. But then I ask what's going on. I was like, she's making a cauliflower rice risotto with a red wine reduction bolognese sauce on top of it. She's like, he was paying attention. And that's the goddamn right. You're damn right. I'm paying attention to Lee Drummond on a Sunday morning.
If multiple people are telling you that,
cardiac arrest.
Maybe that's a you problem.
Listen, I don't always acknowledge the fact that I'm listening, but trust and believe, I'm just like the NSA. I'm always listening. All right?
Well, I hope you're not the NSA agent assigned directly to me, a.k.a. Jerry. So if you are...
Jerithy?
I got questions.
Be cool, buddy. You keep sending me some weird notes. Like you think I'm into some weird stuff. Stop it.
Yeah, Jerry.
Okay.
And for the love of God, would you at least like my memes if you're going to laugh at them? I know you're laughing at them.
You're taking a liberty.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, let's throw this.
Them for me.
When David's trying to show his friend a YouTube video, let's throw this weird anime thing that may or may not be sexually derivized.
I don't think that's a word. Just skip it. You're going to have to skip it.
It's not a, yeah, and we're going to have that.
Go to the rest
There's definitely connotations of sexuality within this anime that was, I was like, hey, check out this funny little Norwegian bus commercial. And then all of a sudden I'm getting like, I don't know where the hell that came from. He's like, what have you been looking at? I was like, not that! Wink, wink.
I don't know who you're talking to. I don't know if this is a real story or
no, it's a real story.
story.
Like, I don't know where it came from. They just took a shot in the dark, apparently, and embarrassed me in front of my friend. So thank you, Jerry. If you could be a little more on point, a little less abrasive with your judgment of what my tastes may or may not be, I'd thank you for it.
Yeah. I didn't read that Jerry had that ability on page 4,625 of the Patriot Act, but I guess he did.
Well,
power to abruptly inject.
This is what I'm into. You want to be into it too?
Onto your phone.
Like, this is what I'm into. You should be into it too. Like, all right,
I bet
Jerry,
a guy working at the NSA named Jerry really does.
Just send me that email before I go showing. Like, here's my phone. Well, good God, what is that? Anyway, you want to jump into the topic?
I think we should. We've drugged this.
You're dragging it on now, right now.
Okay, let's go. Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction podcast episode 44, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/44. You can also find it on any podcast catcher. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok.
I didn't even have to hold up the numbers for you this time. It's
I know,
like
right?
You knew
I'm getting good. So check us out at all those places. But what we're talking about today is, I think, something that's a little bit under the radar. There's some more headline-grabbing events going on in the world this week, but we figured we would bring a remotely obscure one to your attention.
Because that's how you make it to the big time. You bring up obscure things that nobody knows about, and you just harp on them relentlessly.
So on, I believe it was Tuesday of this week, 5 rural counties out in eastern Oregon voted.
That's a hard word to say, by the way.
What?
Rural. Rural. Like you have to like literally pose your lips in the correct way. Rural.
I'm super stoked that that's what you got out of the first sentence.
So I'm going to parlay that into a preemptive apology for any time that we go rural and just kind of blend all of the consonants together and don't really say the word properly. And it's going to happen in this this episode. So please.
Are you done?
There's people that will appreciate that I did that.
Okay. So,
because you just did it, and I'm apologizing for it then and then.
You know what? Don't need the word. Don't need it for purposes of the story.
Let's just move on. Country folk.
5 counties out in eastern Oregon
cities
voted that they may not want to be a part of the state of Oregon anymore. They'd rather join Idaho. We'll kind of get into maybe why that's not a completely irrational thing to feel.
They're OREGOIN to Idaho.
Nice. But the story, depending on, which news outlet is giving you the title, definitely read the story, because if it's a conservative outlet, they're going to slant it a certain way with the same set of facts versus, a lefty or more of a mainstream outlet, which, those are kind of synonymous. But anyway, it was really much ado about nothing, because the 5 counties, one of them voted for their commission to redraw the borders to include their county into Idaho. And then the other commissions just voted to make their board talk about it 3 times a year. Talk about joining Idaho. They got to promise to discuss it, and we're going to make them do it 3 times a year. Like, okay, maybe that's more of a step in the right direction, but based on how efficiently government does anything, saying that they're going to talk about something and then actually get it done is like an exercise in futility if there ever was one.
They'll just bring up we said Idaho at least 3 times this year, right? Yeah, I think we did there. All right, case closed. Here we go. Moving on.
So, and just to kind of ingrain it even further into your understanding of how small of a step in what we think is the right direction this is, even if their commissions, after talking about it 1 to 3 times in the next year, vote to say, hey, yeah, we're going to Idaho, the Oregon legislature has to approve it, which is predominantly left liberal, and these counties you won't be surprised to find out are more conservative counties. And then if the Oregon legislature approves it, the United States Congress has to approve it. And a little interesting little historical fact about that we'll get into later in the episode.
I'm just enjoying my creativity.
I'm glad I didn't hear it.
I'm going to Idaho, far from this opera forevermore. I'm going to work the straw. It's Seven Nation Army.
I know what it is.
But I replaced our city.
I know. Why would you do that?
Idaho.
That's one of the only cool things that ever happens.
Because I was going to bring up the population of Portland that is dictating the politics in Oregon that is making these counties want to leave and go to Idaho, far from this opera forevermore.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to make.
Thanks, bro.
I'm glad you finally let me.
Listen to this creativity.
You finally let me finish my train of thought.
Listen to this creativity. Listen to creativity. Right. It just pours out of me.
So now that we have laid out the events,
sure.
Now we get into the more philosophical matters. Did I read a little bit
too far ahead?
Yes.
Oh,
as per usual.
Well, you shouldn't read the notes to me before we go in. I warned you countless times.
So anyway, as you may have gathered from a few little hints we dropped here and there, these are more conservative, red counties. They identify with the government in Idaho more so than they do in Oregon. And basically, Portland runs the entire state of Oregon. Portland is now, here you come in, David. How many people?
You said it was 100,000?
Like
roughly?
around 650.
650.
Like that, yeah.
And Wichita City, as we hail from, otherwise known as Wichita.
You know, I actually don't know. Keep talking. I want to look up the exact.
Oh, perfection.
Because see,
you know,
Wichita,
you jump on me for my creativity, but then you count on it when you're completely unprepared to give us a goddamn population count. It can't be that big. It's got
wow.
Four maybe? Am I
As of
over
2019, it is 389,000. So about 400.
I can make all the.
You're a very smart guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
You show me a jar of jelly beans, I'll be within a goddamn 10 spot.
Yes.
Of how many are in there?
We got it.
So anyway, but Wichita isn't regarded
comparable in size.
Wichita isn't regarded in the United States as a large city, but Portland is always in the news. So there are only roughly. We're 4, they're 650. A couple of some odd hundred
Don't
more
do math,
thousand.
for the love of Christ.
Yeah, but we're not that far off. But
Right.
they're always in the news, and they're dictating where that state goes. We don't really do much.
So after Portland, just to kind of give you the population outlay for who basically decides is the state government sitting in Salem, Oregon. Salem is the second most populous state in Oregon after Portland.
And just to get this out of the way, is that the place where they had the witch trials?
No.
Okay.
That was in Salem,
making sure so our listeners doesn't know. Or didn't conflate it. Go ahead.
So glad that they got that fact in there.
If I was a listener, I'd be sitting there, is that where they had the witch trials? Or is that the other place?
Anyway,
go ahead.
Salem is like 175 to 200. So it's substantially smaller than Portland. So basically, Portland voters dictate what government sits in Salem, and you won't be surprised to guess it's more of a left liberal government. Again, not passing judgment on one side or the other, but what we are saying is these counties out in eastern Oregon are looking at their state government and saying, you don't seem to represent my interests. You don't seem, I'm not on the same page with you. I don't want to be under your rules. And we'll get into some of those more local rules here in a second. But just on that surface, without passing judgment on left versus right, you could see why one group would not want to be ruled by the other group. No? That's a reasonable thing to think. Right?
I want to chime in, because God knows if I interrupt one of your flows of thought, I get reprimanded, even though I'm trying to help our listeners out. Salem, unfortunate name of Oregon, probably a nice little fishing community. Going to go ahead and assume that. Don't want to look up any facts. Don't want to look up any figures. I'm just going to assume that. Not associated with witches. Here we go.
Is that your only contribution?
That's the only contribution I got.
Okay, well, what I was hoping for, and we didn't rehearse this, so you probably you're not thrown off by that fact either. It was not only 5 short years ago when Donald Trump was elected, and there was a legitimate movement in California for California to secede because he was not only hashtag not their president, they literally did not want him to be their president. And when that happened, I don't remember if the podcast was going on. No, it definitely wasn't. Way too many years ago. We supported that as well, because if, for whatever your reason is, if you don't feel like your national or whatever government, national, state, even down to your county, if they don't have your interest in mind, leave it. Shouldn't that be an option in the land of the free?
I mean, to bring up a point of contention that has been argued for the past couple of years is, if the politicians that you elect can change the voting districts which you are in willy-nilly, just with the signing of documents, then why can't you do the same thing with your county and which state you belong to?
Oh, you're talking about gerrymandering.
Correct.
Yeah, if basically legislators can guarantee themselves their seat because they pick their voters.
Correct.
Yeah.
Then why can't you pick your state?
Why can't you pick with your government that you want to live in?
Because it might create a problem with the aforementioned thing. They can't just make you vote for them again because of your district. You would actually have some sort of freedom.
Right.
It seems like another form of control, does it not?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but no, it's totally cool when they do it. And if we, the people, right, the ones who are supposed to be the masters of our government, that is the American experiment after all, if we start to get uppity and think, well, I just don't like you, and I'm not going to get violent about it. I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to go do my own thing, or I'm going to go do it with this other group of people who actually seems to like me.
Here's the thing: it kind of harkens back to our conversation that we had on Stereo this Wednesday. That they don't need to elicit force through police or through the army. All they need to do is elicit it through the cathedral. They come out with a mandate. The mandate gets passed down to the media. The media tells all these constituents, depending upon whether you're on the right or the left, how to think about this particular mandate, and then guess what happens? Your neighbor polices you. Your neighbor tells you what you should or should not be doing. Your neighbor tells you how you should be living, or they report you to the proper authorities.
Yeah, so what your suggestion is, it's even more local than who your state government is. If your neighbors are turned on you, maybe you might want to secede from that neighborhood.
All the hard work is done for them. All they have to do is come out with what they think, and then they hand it off to the herald, the horn. They tell you, or they tell their followers, I guess you would call it, or their religious right, or whatever the hell you want to call them, what their talking points are for that day, and what to hold your neighbor to.
Right.
So there's no need of force. It's already been done.
Right. And by bringing that up, whether you did it on purpose or on accident, I think it illustrates another point for that people that automatically look at secession with suspicion. And obviously we're going to get into that part of the discussion because we know why. But you just inadvertently gave us another example of secession. Whether your situation about the media dictating all that kind of stuff, making your neighbor turn against you.
Well, the cathedral, as we
right. But what I'm saying is all the way down to your local neighborhood. You can't even trust your neighbor.
That's the real point, right?
The point that I'm trying to make is even in that situation, everybody would be like, okay, move. You have a right to move. You have freedom to move.
Now, in this situation, we're trying to, and you're not letting me do it.
What I'm saying is that the concept of secession, from the macro all the way down to the individual level, people intuitively understand. If you gave them that hypothetical, they'd be like, yeah, just go ahead and move. Or if you gave them another example, like with the gerrymander, like, yeah, that's messed up that they can do that, but we can't, leave if we don't feel represented. So I just want to kind of use those examples for the listener to be like, yeah, no, intuitively secession makes perfect sense. Why would we have this avulsion to it? And that also gets into what the cathedral wants you to think about secession.
Because if there's avulsion, or if there's not the avulsion, if you let people just start having their own opinions again, then you start to see the flaws within your own society. If people are willing to walk away from what you're doing, it shows the weakness in what you're doing, and they can't allow that to happen.
Yeah.
Period.
They can't. They fundamentally cannot allow you to leave because their entire worldview is about control. And I'm not saying that only the left or only the right are like this. I'm saying people that seek power, and then once they have it, they only want to seek to retain it, enlarge it, protect it, grow it as much as possible. That's what they do. If you're sitting in a federal agency and you think you're so smart and you have all this power given to you to regulate an industry or create health regulations or do whatever it is in the federal alphabet soup agency you work for, you're the kind of person who gets in that job and seeks that job isn't the kind of person who thinks that they have bad ideas. People who don't agree with them have all the bad ideas.
Well,
so when those people have power, you think they want to just give it away or let people walk away from it? Of course not.
Well, it all harkens back to the closest sample that we have, or example that we have, is what just happened in COVID, how different states handled the COVID crisis. Certain states, us included, Florida and Texas, decided to be a little more liberal, decided to have a little more personal freedom, decided to have, we aren't going to shut down everything. If you feel like you want to go out and do this thing, go out and do it, but just do it knowing that there is a risk involved. And those that feel comfortable taking that risk, go ahead and do it. And those that do not feel comfortable, stay at home. Whereas California and New York both took different approaches by saying, lockdown, we don't care if you want to go out. We don't care if you want to fraternize. We don't care if you want to go to the bar. We don't care if you want to do this, that, or the other. Stay at home. We don't care. So what happened to those 2 states and what happened to the aforementioned 2 states? The Texas gained 2 electoral college votes. We gained 1 electoral college vote. New York lost an electoral college vote, and California lost an electoral college vote. So, as you said before in those previous episodes, and we discussed this, people voted with their feet, and they didn't like it. They didn't like the fact that people could just pick up their stakes and leave or either that or they didn't foresee it happening when they were doing it. So my whole point in being is that this should be universal. If an entire county decides that they don't want to be a part of your state anymore, they should be able to pick up and leave. It should be your onus to keep them there with the politics and with the rhetoric that you provide.
Right. And, when you bring up the point of COVID, and I know we feel like this, I know a lot of people on our side of the equation feel like this about COVID. It's like, geez, talk about something else. But I mean, it is probably one of the, if not the most watershed events in our relatively young life, early 30s. It's one of the most anti-liberty watershed events in our lifetimes, and in some instances in all of American history. So, I mean, it's a relatively important point to always bring it up and pull it back to that, because what we cannot do is let these people in power get away after what they did. And we cannot let the narrative take hold that it would have been worse had they not done what they done. If it wasn't for them, us stupid rubes would have all been dead. That cannot be the narrative that comes out of what we just lived through. So, I mean, it is illustrative in a lot of ways. And as you say that with the COVID thing, so here's a concrete example. Oregon is looking at adopting, or they just recently did. They just adopted the policy that you can take your mask off outside, but if you are inside, then you have to show proof of your vaccination, or you got to keep your mask on. So they're basically taking Joe Biden's tweet that we referenced a week or so ago and putting it into practice. And they're going to make private businesses, ask you for your papers at the door. And they're following the suit of only 2 other states are doing stuff like this, and it's New York and Hawaii, that have already started to imply a kind of a digital passport system. And so this is Oregon's step, but who knows that they don't go down the same path as Hawaii and New York.
Here's my point. Again, people voted with their feet like we were just talking about. Okay, how do you make these businesses really feel how you see the world? You vote with your dollars. If these businesses decide that they will not let you in unless you tell them that you have a vaccinated body, if you don't feel comfortable with that, don't shop there. There's a multitude of different places that you can spend your dollar in any given Sundries or whatever the hell you would have, or order offline. I don't think Amazon is checking vaccination passports quite yet. We haven't quite got there.
If you're that afraid, there's nothing forcing you out of your house. You can work from home. You can order from Amazon.
But I'm talking about plenty of people. There's plenty of people that I know down here that have been vaccinated that have refused to enter an establishment that still requires masks. The mask mandate has been lifted. They have worn their mask while it was understood as safe for the American public. Now they're following the science that they are 95% unable to catch it, let alone spread it. Therefore, there's no reason to wear the mask. Why are you making me wear the mask? I won't conform anymore. I won't spend my dollar here. You will lose my business.
Right. And I think that the point about that is, Again, that's on the individual level of voting with your dollars, voting with your feet. I'm not going to patronize your establishment. And then there is, we don't want to be under your governance anymore. We'd rather be under the governance of this other state who seems to have more of our worldview in line. And I mean, think about it. So if just because it happens to be red counties wanting to leave a blue state doesn't mean that we wouldn't support it in the opposite direction. Like we use the examples of liberals in California wanting to leave over Trump. Go for it. But we're also not naive to the completely historically incomplete and disingenuous attack on secession that we haven't been burying the lead. We put this toward the end of the episode for a reason, because it is a BS argument. And the powerful, the ones that we just described, don't want to get rid of control at all. Them and the rest of their apparatchiks in the cathedral start spinning the story. Secession equals slavery. And then because just by saying that, they've won the argument. You don't, there is nothing else to be had. Secession equals slavery. If you support secession, you are slavery adjacent. You are a bad person. Now, obviously that's a stupid and disingenuous argument, but it's not even historically, it's so incomplete. Remember how we said if the counties do this, the Oregon legislature approves it, right? A left liberal legislature lets these red counties leave. Then Congress has to approve it, and Congress has done it 3 times. For Kentucky to get carved out of the original Virginia colony, for Maine to get carved out of Massachusetts, and the third one you'll never guess. It was approving West Virginia to leave and stay with the Union. Well, there seems to be an example of secession for a good cause, no? So with such a small sample size of only 3 times the United States government has approved it, and one happens to be in favor of an anti-slavery position, yet that never comes up. It's always just secession is only and ever referred to Confederate states, so it only and ever can be applied to slavery. That's so lazy and just abhorrent that that's the direction that this argument goes, that you can see I get a little incensed about it.
That's what we are nowadays. If we can start firing downrange on some listeners, and more or less probably people that would hear this podcast and wipe their ass with it, let alone listen to it.
David, don't shoot us down. Let the trolls on YouTube shoot us down.
But what I'm saying is, that's lazy thinking. To just listen to a word and equate it to one thing that happened one time, that's lazy. To understand where you're at, to understand freedom, you have to understand freedom is dangerous. Freedom does not have any safety ropes. When you free climb, to associate it with mountain climbing, when you free climb something, there's no rope to save you. You misplace your hand, you're falling to your death. But there's a release within that. You are capable of doing whatever you want, and you should be capable of doing whatever you want. How free are you right now? Really, ask yourself that question. In the land of the free and the home of the brave, how free are you? How free are you? How brave are you? When you go on your Twitter and complain that somebody misrepresented you in a Starbucks line. Oh, you are so brave, you victim, you. We admonish strong people now, and we bolster the victim. This is wrong. This is counterintuitive, and it will have repercussions. I guarantee you that. Go ahead, Dan.
David also has strong feelings about
every now and again.
So yeah, if you have the whole historical picture when somebody tries to appeal to your emotions rather than your logic or the facts, kind of keep pulling on that ball of yarn until it's not a ball anymore. Get to the end of the logical conclusion. And it seems to me that at least some of them in California would agree that there are modern day good reasons to want to leave if the wrong president gets elected. And so I would think that if there were some counties in a state just because those counties' party doesn't have power, they say, we want to take our ball and go home or go to Idaho. Again, find me the morally objectionable thing with that. Just like I would ask you to point out the morally objectionable thing of West Virginia leaving Virginia for the Union during the Civil War.
Or option B, if you fight to hold on to them, they'll just leave their fucking estate, sell it off at a cheap skate rate, and go over to Idaho. You'll lose the population, your value of real estate will decrease, and you'll hurt your state. Period. So either let them go willingly and don't hurt your state, or fight them and hurt your state and hurt the rest of the voters that want to stay there. It's very simple. The more you fight, the more you resist, the more it persists. You will start to falter. You fight it like this, you don't let them out easy, then the other counties will see how hard you fought and how vehemently you fought and how you didn't see eye to eye with them and didn't let them go. Then all of a sudden they start to think that maybe they should go too. Then all of a sudden your state shrinks. Then all of a sudden you don't have as many electoral votes as you thought that you did last time. Instead of just letting somebody go that should have been gone in the first place.
So I think to kind of tie the whole thing together, we have made this point on this podcast before, and, we'll make it here again because we think it's worth making plenty.
It sounds like a hard breakup, doesn't it? It sounds like
it's not me, it's you.
No, don't, please. I don't want to go put on clothes because I know what happens. When I go put on clothes, it's over. Just stay. Let's talk it out. Like, I had some genuine advice from one of my best friends a long time ago. I'm not going to say his name because I don't know if he wants to be put on blast. But when you're going through a breakup, the best thing you can do is go out like a champion. That's all you can do. Just hold your head up high, go, yep, you're absolutely right. I'll see you down the road. Because then, if for nothing else, you'll know that you didn't cave, you didn't grovel, you didn't beg. So you can hold your head up high, David, when you walk down the road.
David, this is weapons of meme destruction. This is not David therapy hour.
I'm talking to Oregon right now. Like, let them go. You'll be stronger down the road. They'll be like, well, why did you let me go so quick? He must have a better idea. Or she must have a better idea. Maybe she had some other guy picked out stronger, bigger, and faster than me. Like, that's the only thing you can do is go out like a champ. Don't beg, don't grovel, just let them go. That's better for you. When you beg, they know they have the power, the control, and yada, yada, yada. Go ahead, Dane. Please.
Okay. Well, that is not the point I was going to end with. So here's
shocking. Let's go with the legal jurisdiction barcode 128, section 3 of Article B.
I just built up the fact that we have made this point before and then not told them, so I'm going to tell them now.
Please tell them again.
You have two choices here. You can either have violent union or peaceful divorce. As you can see in both of those situations, there's some good and there's some bad.
The train's on the tracks and it's moving forward.
I guess if you think union has an inherently intrinsically good value to it, which I don't see why that would be the case, but it's neither here nor there. But you have factions of people that literally can't stand the sight of each other, and some even believe the other side is like literal demons. So I don't think they're going to see eye to eye on a lot of things. So there's no harm in non-violently turning your backs to each other and walking away. If I grant you that those are two bad options, there is clearly one that is not near as bad as forcing these people to share a government and fight tooth and nail until it eventually does spill out into the streets, which we, by making this point, are calling for exactly the opposite. We may get accused when people take sound bites out of some of these episodes. We may get accused of encouraging violence or riots or whatever the case may be. But we can assure you that by pointing these out, we're trying to avoid those things. That peaceful divorce is much more preferable.
We're saying that it's
for a lot of reasons.
It's effect, not cause.
Yes. And it's the most humane way to approach the situation. So with that, I've said my piece.
Somebody doesn't want to be with you, guess what? Forcing them to be with you won't make them want to be with you. So you should just cut it off right then and there.
Yep.
I know you think she's pretty, and I know you think he's.
We didn't think this was going to be like.
But it's like
political philosophy and relationship.
This is like how to forget a guy in 10 days. You know what I mean? It's like, jeez whiz. All right, guys. All right. Well, I know you think that there's not that many states. You're an older state. You're an older county. Not a lot of states will be interested in you. Just go on to biggerfish.com. You'll see a couple of states out there that you might want to just hit up in their DMs, slide up in it, and just be like, hey, we seem to have a lot of the same interests. Can we join your union?
All right. Well, with that slightly horrifying imagery,
what would you even call it?
I think
Twitter?
I think we're going to close it out. So you can find this episode at wmdpodcast.com/44. Any podcast catcher, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all the places. Oh, and definitely David said it earlier in the episode.
I fucking softballed that one in, and you just watched it.
Hey, it was mid-thought, and I wanted to let you finish your thought. Oh. So every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, we do a live show on the Stereo app. You can get it on Android or iPhone. Just go to your app store and just search Stereo, and it's a little black and orange logo. But anyway, it has live shows, and David and I just pick a current event topic, similar to the podcast. But if you have the app and you are listening to our conversation, you can chime in with a question, and we love to engage with the audience. So download Stereo and come check us out Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. We usually go for about an hour. Oh, yes. You will be able to find us. You got to search either WMD_David or WMD_Dane. Either one of those, follow them, and you'll get a notification when we go live.
Perfect.
So there you go. Yeah. So we actually did a pretty decent job of keeping it close to 30 minutes. So with that, we should probably shut up. I should shut up. You should shut up. Shut up.
I wasn't saying anything.
Okay.